everybody, my name is Jessica Holyfield. I'm a professional dancer, professional dance choreographer, and dance educator based out of the southeast of the United States. And we're going to be taking a look at ATEEZ's wave dance practice. I don't think I've heard this song. I may have heard, English. There's a good chance I may have heard this because, funnily enough, I've been discovering very quickly that this era of some of their tracks I've been exposed to because it was either recommended on my Spotify or something, but I didn't connect the dots and know that it was ATEEZ. So I know in a couple of reactions, maybe this one, maybe in the future, there are songs that I'm like, oh, I've heard that, so you can just be on the lookout for those when that happens. I do also know, I believe Anjay was the choreographer for this, and if you watch Say My Name, you do know how, for me, it was a bit of a struggle to get through that one, not for the reasons that you would think. Not because of the plagiarism case or anything like that, but because of my personal relationship I have with Anjay. And it makes me very curious actually to see how his choreography changes. If this is in fact his choreo, I think I will triple check before I officially react to it, just to make sure that I am right. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it as always. ATEEZ is definitely, they do try a lot of different concepts, so it's fun to see the risks they take within those. So we're gonna go ahead and check it out. Wave. Here we go. Oh, I know this song. Okay. Definitely on the cleaner side than some of the ones we had seen previously. Yeah, I do think some of the sequences are simpler, but it still requires the same amount of effort to clean. A little bit of light feed, okay. It's kind of meeting my expectations on how they would interpret this track, just based on all the context I've had. But I'm still very impressed with Anjay for seeing a very more legato approach to some of the grooves. That was nice. Spacing just to tap it off there in the back, but I really liked that dynamic. A little bit of a sneeze. I do think that we do have a couple of moves, like I've already said. With how they're doing the viral moves, it can date it a little bit. And also I noticed there was a little lock-in that just happened. I don't know if that was my favorite choice for them to do there in that moment, because it wasn't technically the end of a lot of a light beat phrase. So I just felt, I wish it would have been a different choice. That was cool. I like the energy of this one more, but it's not as refined as that first course that we saw. It's not because the content is more difficult. I think it's because the energy that is required to do some of that, I feel they haven't quite gotten on the same page of refining the energy yet. But the movements, yes. He just popped off. I do like their songs. There's more songs that I like versus not like from them. That was nice. Really nice. When it comes to the peel downs, I see major improvement on those here. Oh, cute. Cute. So I think I realized something with them by watching this video, because we're really focusing more on legato grooves, which is more smooth compared to the staccato and sharpness. So there was a couple times where there were more energetic, extroverted movements that we saw, and there was a little bit of an added staccato response in it. And I think part of it may stem from, with San, I know San really takes in crump especially, and I don't know how much he's invested in that himself, but what happens whenever you invest in a style, the fingerprints of that style are going to start to trickle in everything else you do dance-wise. Great example would be ballet dancers trying to do a street style. They have a muscle memory and a posture fluency of a very different style, culture, and community of movers. So whenever you have them go from a ballet headspace into a more, let's say, popping, for example, or a funk style, they're going to feel like a fish out of water, or some of their movements are going to have a certain carriage about them because of the muscle memory that they have to navigate through and learn how to become bilingual in movement, essentially, right? And I kind of feel like with some of these comebacks or some of these that we're going to be seeing, that is what we're going to be looking at. I especially think with San. And the reason why I say this is I've already seen San do a solo project with Imagine Dragons. That was the first ATEEZ thing I technically analyzed on the channel. And so I know he can do it now, 2023, the time I'm filming this, but back then I don't know how much refinement was still taking place with him. And I also know that he specifically was growing in dance in general because he didn't really dive into that until he became a trainee. So I know a lot of that going in because of a lot of you guys who are fans of ATEEZ. I thank you. Toast to you. Let's get into this one. This one is definitely much cleaner, especially this beginning. Notice what the type of track it is. Like, it's very woo. It has a very summery vibe about it. It also says wave. Some of the timbre, a lot of this is used when you think about media or in movies. Sometimes certain tracks sound appropriate in certain montages, right? This one sounds more like beach fun. We're to go down, have a great time. Even if they didn't call it wave, it gives off that energy because of the da 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 and that dun dun dun. Some of the percussions kind of they have some similarities that trickle over into other genres that do have that type of vibe. Does that make sense? So going into this, I feel like if we're looking for more of a good time, that kind of vibe, more Caribbean aesthetic is what I would say. But I don't know near as much about Caribbean, Polynesian, any of that as much as I know about American. But I do know I'm always learning and growing, so maybe I'll learn something new from this. But having this energy in the beginning of this, I do feel like we popped off pretty aggressively for what timbres were there for us to use. Yeah, bump, bump, bump. I think maybe because we had so much pent up energy in that explosion, it felt like a very big explosion versus just a pop up. Like, we still would have been able to maintain and justify the level, but I think that if we not chilled it a bit, but maybe utilized the energy or refined it to make it more appropriate for the timbre that they were hitting, it would have registered more boom, da 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 da, still maintain the cleanliness. It's still clean. And then boom, boom. Notice that my center guy right here, boom, boom. Notice there's no give to how he's doing the movement. But with the type of track, a lot of times it has more of a laid back aesthetic. Normally you have people do more boom, more accented textures for this type of timbre, and I think that's what I'm catching, is that we're not seeing any rebounds or any accents happening throughout the techniques, which is more of a preferential thing, but that's just an overall note. If that wanted to come across a little bit more laid back, chill, good vibes, that kind of accented rebound of that aesthetic would have helped in that. That was really nice. It kind of looks like a little wave there. And I do know they have little Easter eggs of imagery for depending on the concept. I love this boom, doom, doom. They are always really good at accenting with some popping fundamentals in it. They like using vibrations. They like using isolations, reverbs, having this moment of rebounds and heads. It's just, I'm a fan of that because popping is definitely a branch from waving for me, and I have trained in popping more than other styles in my long list of being a student of things. So I really love seeing it, and I love that everybody went doom doom doom. Great way to showcase that we have individuality, because everyone's matching the dynamic of the technique, but how they're going about it, they're making different choices of angles. And that's what really helps. Even though if some of them are coming from the shoulder, some are coming from the elbow, the range is the same. And that's how you maintain synchronicity and cleanliness, but also maintain individuality, which is something that I am looking forward to seeing with ATEEZ specifically, because I know a lot of people have said they're known for their stage presence and individuality, but I also want to include they do have really great moments of synchronicity as well that helps enhance those things and makes those things more captivating to look at. That's a thing to catch too. This was nice. That boom, boom. That was an appropriate way to do more of that staccato. Ding, ding, boom. And then bleeding over into this really chill acoustic section. Having our guy in the center using his hands do more. This reminds me of Kinja so much, but in the best way possible. Very ninja-esque. But notice I love the lowering of the level. It's very easy for us to see who our feature is. It's just really nice. And then notice that everybody's choosing to use the hips and rotate them the same direction, which really helps with maintaining the feature but keeping it clean. That little da 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 da, I know that transition was really cool, and it was a good choice to maintain the level. I do think there was a lot of power into it, but it could be because we had to make sure we got over and he had to match the same traveling range that everybody else had to meet. So that's something that I will equate that to. I did like that da na 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 with a little bit of a wave. Now I'm glad we have waving technique in here, but I'm going to be very strict on it because I am a waver. That is the style that I have chosen in my life to represent as a freestyle explorative. Like when I do exhibitions or ciphers, I wave, and so I'm very, very fluent in picking up and analyzing waving in comparison to a lot of other styles. So the fact that this is called wave, love the imagery of the waves. However, we have to be very mindful of the fingers when you do wave. You want to make sure that there is a connection between where you want it to start versus where you want it to finish. If you want it to start from the kinesphere and then make it bleed into the body, that's an entrance type of wave. If you want it to start from the body and come out, that's an exit wave. So seeing this here, we're transferring the energy all the way over. So my overall note would be for everybody to make sure that their angle of their wave starts and finishes around the same time, especially if you're choosing to frame up. Some of them are choosing more of this type of angle. Some of them are going up higher. That does affect how your range of the joints that you use in your wave are going to come across. So, but I love that boom and then boom, boom. I do feel like some of their staccato was a little bit aggressive there, which goes back to my main point. I really think this group is learning how to work together to hit some of these more, hit some of their energy and learn how to refine their energy, because I think they have so much of it. And it reminds me a lot of times of, how it's, what is it, puppy energy. Like it's giving puppy energy in the best way possible. And I'm seeing it through their dance practices because I see it so refined and matured in their latest content. And I've only seen San. So it makes me think if San used to be not even the center point of somebody who was considered the dancer of the group, to him being more that center point, I'm very excited to see everybody else, especially the ones who were deemed the dancers of the group. But I know all of them carry and hold their own as dancers, of course, pre-debut. I've been there, right? So I think I'm excited to see the refinement take place. And I'm already starting to see it here because I'd never been able to pick up on it until now. So I love that. You see this moving on. I love this pull through. That right there, boom, whoop. I think if we really pulled from the chest, whoop, that would have matched that sound so well. But I like the choice that was made here. Yeah, it just felt like it hit just a millisecond too early. And you want to make sure that you ride inside of your music, not just dance on top of it. And I don't think that wasn't on top of perspective, but I think that had the opportunity to really dig and get comfortable in the music there in that moment. I love that level change. Great introduction to your next feature, having everybody drop down to the ground. Now that was a nice little interruption moment of that little snaking kind of with the hand out in front. Not everybody was on the same page on that, but I understood what was happening. So I think that's fine. Yeah, da 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 da. It's always nice to have a more staccato, but then show me that you know how to have a pedestrian, natural aesthetic about it too. That helps me appreciate when you choose to go staccato more. I need to see the range of your execution in how you're hitting some of these movements or how you hit staccato. It can't be the same attack every time. And I think that's another symptom that I'm noticing from ATEEZ as a group is whenever they have especially really powerful tracks. I would say Pirate King is a really great example. Of course, that's like the really, really big, impactful one that I've seen out of a lot of them, but Hala Hala too, but I would say I notice it more in Pirate King. They have a really great way of presenting two really heavy basses as well as really loud movement. Loud movement, but no. Loud sound envelopes, but they match the energy of it. And I think that's such a captivating thing about them and their dance practices. I cannot imagine their live performances, but I know that's coming in my future. I don't know if I'm going to watch those before or after I get through all the dance practices. We shall see. But it is nice that we saw a range of that staccato. I will say when we choose to go simpler on a groove, we repeat a double groove. That would have been a perfect opportunity to have your front line go, boom, dun, dun, or to have three of your guys go, boom, 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 dun, dun, and then on a dun, dun, because he says the same thing twice. Beautiful opportunity that I feel like was missed there. So that was more of a choreography thing, because this is all still unison right there, you know, dun, 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 dun. Unison in that little section would have looked a lot nicer, and then branch off into the new transition. This was nice. Great job. Great job on that part. The range is really getting a lot better on their upper body, and I'm a fan of that. That was nice too. Even here, even though some people were a little bit off, like how they were hitting it was a lot better. I'm already seeing improvement on the uniformity here. And uniformity does not mean that we're sacrificing individuality. I want to be very clear about that. I still very much see them as individuals, but I really feel like they're operating more unified. Because it's a group at the end of the day, right? If they were all soloists, then we can be way more gracious towards if it's a complete hot mess express, which none of the routines are technically that bad. I just think some routines are not nearly as clean as the caliber that they set themselves up on when they debuted with both Treasure and Pirate King. And so I feel like we're kind of back on track here. That was a nice moment too. Great way of professionalism that we were seeing over here, because he is super close to that mirror and he does a really good job of not taking away from the movement or taking away from the take, but still contributing. Yeah, that right there. Da-da-da-da-da-da. And he was the feature at that point too, and I think he did a really great job doing as best as he could, you know? And that's the downside of these. This is also a side note I want to make people aware of. And you only experience it, being very honest, whenever you practice in front of a mirror and then you're asked to film without the mirror. These guys most likely train and practice facing that way, so facing over here. What ended up happening is when they film facing the camera over here, a lot of times dancers, I'm not talking about them, but in my experience with when I work with dancers, their brains decide to stop working, or their brain has to recalibrate. Wait, this is my new front, so where do I start? I get that question so many times of, even though it's the same exact routine, the fact that I made them face the back versus the front, they're like, oh my gosh, I don't know where I am, I don't know what I'm doing. And that just happens, that's life. So I think people don't really, I feel like people don't give them enough credit sometimes whenever they get to film and they're very clean. And I'm just talking about groups in general, because most of the time they're dancing and the mirror is not being seen. And they're not facing the mirror or the direction that they would normally face when they train. So their bodies are going to have to make sure they're all in the same place. And the formations are actually very impressive. So huge kudos to them for that. Ta-da-da. Yeah, I think it just goes back to, because their energy is so full, or just feels like we're pushing so much energy into every movement when it's supposed to be da 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 na na na. Like, it doesn't feel like we're having breath into it. It feels more placed, and we're shoving breath versus allowing breath to have an accented push into the movement. And I feel like we're not able to properly build on these types of timbres or these sound contexts or these tonal colors, because it's really difficult to troubleshoot that or get used to that whenever you're not really used to that range or that realm. So that's my overall note that I'm just noticing here. This was was so nice. I think their peels have gotten so much better. Noticing it started over here, very clear where we're wanting to go. Yeah, that bump, bump, bump. Some people look down, some people just travel. That'd just be very clear. Do we look down? Do we look front? That would have really made that a lot cleaner. But it was still clean because everybody got to their spot and they set up effectively. So now, having this moment with them here, my overall note, because they're all facing towards them, I wish that the level was different. I always feel that way, especially when you're dealing with a group that has very similar height. I can't truly enjoy the feature moment here, especially when they're not doing anything at this moment besides looking at each other. This would have looked a lot better if they traveled it, transitioned it, something of the like. That would have really enhanced this section versus making it feel like we're just doing content for this part. I know there was a little bit, I'm going to talk about this light thing real quick. They go back in right there. Tone wah twist right there. Hopping it through, doing little heel taps. That part was very clean how they got out of it, but the light feet surrounding quite wasn't where, it just didn't quite, it didn't match. The light feet, when you think about light feet and what downbeats it hits on, that did not match here. It felt just misplaced. And I think I caught on to that when I saw the lock-in happen a little bit later. So I really wish that we didn't have light feet in this at all, because of how they move in general right now. How they perform, how they project their energy is not effective to light feet because they're going to do light feet the way light feet normally is done to a light feet track. This is not a light feet track. This has a more gregarious, there's more gregariousness into light feet because it's very hype, but I would say gregarious more on the happier side emotionally with this type of song. It's encouraging, it's uplifting, and of course there's a sense of empowerment with light feet. Don't get me wrong. It's a very different wheelhouse of sounds and layers and levels and key elements in this, that, or the other. A completely different culture that we're talking about here. But I would say they were not seeing enough fluency in the texture shifts between having this push and pull energy. They don't have that push and pull energy unless it is very stagnancy, like you're going in slow motion on a full throttle energy push is kind of what is coming across more as. So that would be my overall note to the choreographer. To Anjay, I would have suggested take the light feet out because they don't know how to distribute as a group. They don't know how to distribute that push and pull energy yet. That would have made the light feet work for that part, because you could have done it if the tone watts weren't so stagnantly push and pull, but there's no tension there. You need to have that tension. There needs to have some breath in between the twist, not just the twist, if that makes sense. So that's a very interesting thing that I didn't realize this entire time until now with this track. So I'm very thankful that we caught on to this because I'm very excited to see when we get to see them as a group do that, because I know they will. And that's what I love doing about the marathons is I know we're going to see progress, and I get an expedited fast pass version of it because I get to see it whenever I want. I don't have to wait months to see the progress, which is super fun. That part was fine. Dun, 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 dun. Having that pull, suction of air out. Da, 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 da. Now, that's really nice to see everybody do the shoulder. I really wish our feature in the front, he didn't do the chest, he did the shoulder too, because it would have helped it look very clean, and I would have naturally have seen him. 2L. But then he added on in that second one. I think he needed to truly differentiate between this one and this one way more in order for me to know it was obviously different, because I'm looking at him and I'm noticing everybody peripherally because he's my natural feature. It felt like we were just slightly off, but everybody did a great job of isolating to the shoulder in that groove. That was nice. This part's fun, but it goes back to my same note that I give. There's a lot of unison, and we can take full advantage of the level usage of this group because more numbers, you have more opportunities for that. And it would help with the unison a lot on some of these groups. This is nice, but if you notice, even here, everyone's going the same way both times. We could have mirrored it. We could have had people built up or drop down 1, 2, and 3. There's just a lot of dynamic opportunities. That is my overall note for just Anjay in general. He could use a lot more dynamics with this group of levels. This was nice. I love that, and I know he pops out from the front. I think they just needed to figure out a way to get the spacing a little bit more refined right here, because I can just see the gap. But the turn though, the dynamic looks great. Just the formation itself is off. You could tell it's a little bit curved versus very straight. And I know part of it can stem from the sides of the room or making sure they're in frame for the camera. There's a lot of anxiety that can come from making sure you're in the shot. I deal with that every single time I film a dance take. A lot of times I do a marked run just so I can make sure that I'm hitting it the way that it needs to be hit in the camera before I actually go for it. So that's just my overall note for that. That turn. So I like that moment of the wave, and let me take a look and see this real quick. So he did a little wave here, but notice he cut it off at the elbow. He didn't actually take it anywhere. So that would be my note to him, is whenever you're gonna do a wave, it needs to have a finish of some kind. Having it stop at the elbow, it does feel a bit incomplete compared to how he could have taken it and brought it down through the body. It would have naturally made him feature out more compared to the dynamics of what was happening behind him. Right, boom, boom. Now that moment, it wasn't quite clear on how they were breaking off, but I didn't quite mind it. It was still a nice moment. Oh, I see now. Let me just see it one more time. If the formation was cleaner, I would have seen that a lot more clearly. The turnaround was nice. That little whoo. Love the simplicity, like the intimacy of that. I love that it was quieter in execution. It was intricate. It was nice. And they turned. I think it was because some of them chose to put their hand by that hip before they did it, and some of them just did it with the hand down and draped down. So that would just be that's just little baby cleanliness things there. If the formation was cleaner, I will say, and the spacing was on top of it, I would have really seen that a lot more. But it was still cleaner. I liked that. Little heart. That was a cute little moment. Now here, you notice he took that little step hop. It looked like he was almost late. And notice that not everybody's feet are the exact same distance from each other. But I will also say, do you see how much room they have? They got none for the size of the group. They don't have a lot of room. I do like how he kind of branched through. Da 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 da. I like that. Whoa, that was fun. I think it was more like whoa. Like if it was more of a surprise, I think it would have really read more energetic because it felt more of a surprise. But it was still really nice to see that moment of interaction between the feature and everybody else. Now this right here, having the SMEs there because they got to kind of do their own thing and SMEs to a new spot. I will go back and say the same thing that I said about, I think it was Say My Name. There was a lot of viral movements that didn't quite vary enough to where it would age well. It felt like we disconnected from the overall. That doesn't make me feel like individuals. It feels like we're just trying to compromise to the viral aesthetic of the era. Is what it gives off. Now I know that's not the case, but that's something that some people can kind of get confused a little bit about this. If you want to stay as individuals, then don't do movements that everybody's doing, in a similar way that everybody's doing it. I'd say vary it up, but that's more of a choreography note, not a ATEEZ note, because they were probably told, I want you to smeeze to the spot, do whatever you want with your upper body. That's probably what they were told. They did exactly what they were told to do. Now, was it as clean? Not quite, but also I think that we could have varied it up, whether it's timing or the frequency of it, maybe sped up, speed changed it a little bit, had some variety. I do remember there was a little Millie Rock section where they kind of crossed it over with a speed change. That was sick. And those are more appropriate and effective ways to take viral movements that do help pay ode and tribute to the era without aging it to making it feel like you're compromising to what trends in the era. You know what I mean? So that's just my overall note with that. With that move, I feel like it does take away just a little bit. Love the energy here of everybody being very clean, except for your two features. He was the one who kind of had more of an extroverted response as he finished his transition. Helped me clock him, but because he's the feature, it makes sense why I clocked him, which is good. Much cleaner. That right there was great. Except for the lock-in. The lock-in just feels very placed. It doesn't feel like a clean finish because there was no base to cater that to. There is a base. That happened on an 8, which normally you have your lock-in finish on that count, so I'll give him that. But it just felt very da-da-da-da, and 7 and 8. It didn't feel like, boom, like it wasn't giving what lock-ins give in light feet, and that just validates my point of, I really don't think light feet for the context of where ATEEZ is in their current journey, so the choreography context of this, as well as the type of track it is, I don't think it was an efficient usage of that type of style in a track like this. I am always an advocate for you can integrate styles all day long. I do it all the freaking time. So I'm not sitting here saying that at all. I'm saying based on all the other circumstances that I'm talking about, I don't think it was the best choice. I think there could have been other choices that still would have carried that same level of energy and pull without having to compromise just other facets. You're kind of showcasing their limitations. That's my note for that. Running through. I like that moment. That was fun with the little marches. Is good. This was a fun moment. Very easy to see. Ba da 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 da. That was great. That was great too. Going on. Great way to showcase him because of the level drop. That was great. Pulling through. That was probably one of the best moments. I absolutely loved that. That was super fun. It was very enjoyable. And even though they all had different pulls, the dynamic was the same. And it goes back to my main point. You can showcase individuality if you pay really good, if you steward the other information and other facets well. Synchronicity is not meant to compromise for your lack of individuality. You need to have your own personality as a mover in order for people to enjoy what you're doing. Because if you were in sync and you're very clean in what you do, but there's no performance behind it, it doesn't mean anything. You're just doing something that's clean. It's not the same thing as actually feeling like you're invested in your own track. And that's kind of at the end of the day, if the group themselves are not going to showcase synchronicity or cleanliness within their own track, then it feels like they are not really that invested themselves in it as much as I feel like they would either want to, whether that's time constraints or things of the nature. That's how Megaverse by Stray Kids felt. It felt like the turnaround time was so aggressive for the overall means of the caliber of the type of track and dancer usage that it was supposed to be. It felt very underwhelming because of a lot of things I mentioned in that analysis that I will stay here. They're doing a good job with the dynamics. I'm seeing a major improvement on using dynamics and range between their content that they're choosing to do. But because they're making different choices within it, it helps with keeping it clean, but also making them showcase their story the way they want them to. So that was a great moment, having them go down and up. Very stable coming out of that. That's always a good thing. Having them have their moment here, which is really nice. That was fun. He pulled him through. Yeah, he goes over. That was looking a little awkward, this right here. I kind of feel like he just kind of like, oh, okay, where he was trying to keep acting. I felt like that was his attempt at acting. Bless it. I mean, it's just sometimes you see it and you're like, ooh, that's a bit cringe, little heart. That was cute, a little cringe, but also know too, I'm coming at it from an analytic lens, not from a fan service lens. I'm not a fan technically. I'm just somebody who loves watching dance content and getting to see the pros and the cons, the areas of growth, as well as the things of improvement with groups. So I'm really happy. This is a major improvement from Say My Name personally. And I would say both from Anjay's choreographic perspective, I really think that we made some different choices here in compared to what he made in Say My Name, and I think they were good calls compared to what he could have done. That right there, that's fine, but notice the arms. Some of them are really bent and some are straight. Really big discrepancy on the upper body that we know they can do, and they've made those changes and those fixes earlier, but I feel like we could have paid more attention to the upper body here. Pulling through. I love the clap. The clap was in sync that time, so that was good. The energy here. The grooves, surprisingly enough, are definitely more on the same page. It's the extremities that are off, which is why it feels off. But I like the choices that they're making here. Do you notice that? That just feels really nice. 1, 2, 3, 4. That was a really great choice. Putting it through and then bringing it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, and up and up. But you know what I'm going to say? They could totally have done an add-on there. I feel like we've missed so many opportunities with a group of 8. Even regardless if you have to work on symmetry, you're always going to have to deal with that. That's fine. That's not a problem, shockingly here. It's the complete lack of level utilization that we could use in these courses to help make it feel way more dynamic the first versus the second time. You don't just have to change your content in order for somebody to remain captivated on your track. I think XG did something like that because I'm reacting actively reacting to XG at this point in time as well. They did something in their courses, even though the choreography is the same, their formations are different, their add-ons are different, their moments of their features are different, and that's what helps keep your attention. Here, the content is different, which is very nice, but you do run a higher risk of, because their tracks are aggressively long. I said that at one point. Goodness gracious, their tracks are long. Probably some of the longest on average than any other group I've watched, which showcases the fact they have so much energy is insane to me. I'm very envious. I wish I had that type of energy, but I'm operating as a 27-year-old who has to pay for her own insurance. So I'm a little bit more like, I feel more elderly. But I know I'm still on the younger side for sure. But all that to say, like, very impressed at their stamina. But I do feel like if we refined their energy, it would be a night and day just showcasing in these dance practices, I think. That was nice seeing that there. Dun, da, 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 and a boom, which is really nice. 1, 6. Okay, so my little note here, as I can tell, okay, as soon as I said that they have a lot of energy, they're starting to look a little winded. That's life. It's a lot of energy that is required of you for 2 minutes and 45 seconds. I know there was quite a little bit of shifting of the weight, so this takes away from your features. So if everybody was really stable back here, I would have really appreciated just the intimate movements or intricacies of those who are on the ground. Just because they're on the ground doesn't mean that they're naturally going to be my feature. If they're still and somebody from the back turns around, I'm going to naturally want to look at them. So where you are doesn't technically matter as much as what you do with where you are. So that's just my note to make sure that they need to be very still. Notice that they're just kind of there fixing stuff. And I do know, with outfits, you just gotta fix what you gotta fix. I get that. That was interesting how aggressive he hit that for the type of sound it was. It's like a soft thud, but it sounded like he had banged into the next generation. So my one note is he needs to refine. I think he's my prime suspect for needing to refine his energy because how he's executing it is so full and it works for certain concepts like Pirate King, but it'll backfire in these types of concepts. Because just because you go really full doesn't mean that it's as effective. Because I do experience in conventions a lot of times, there's a lot of dancers who are so full, but they look a bit out of control because they're not listening and ingraining themselves in the music and allowing patience and depth to how they're executing the movement. I'm not saying he's doing it to that extreme, but I'm seeing the symptoms of it here. So I'm looking forward to seeing him mature through the comfortability of digesting through a groove, not just popping off the groove or having that moment because the opportunity's there, So this part's fine. I think just that thud was so aggressive compared to everything else that was happening after. I like that part. That was nice. But I'm curious. Oh, he's having his moment over here. That's why. So they go around. Then having them have their breakdown. That was much cleaner, but I think one of our dancers was just a little bit off right here. Oh, this one's the most replayed section. Hold on. Honestly, so that's most replayed. I never take the time to look at these the way I should. Okay. I like that they brought it back in, which is nice, but notice that my dancer right back here, he's going to have the wrong arms in about 1 second. Yep, so he didn't fully finish the line, and I caught that. Yeah, that ba-na-na-na-na. If they had a little like drop and boom boom, like a little like da 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 da, it would have added a lot of like if you had just like the interruption of a completely different texture right back into it, it would make this more digestible and more enjoyable for the fact that they're still going hard near the tail end. That was nice right there. But notice they just did a simple window change. We could have done an add-on. We could have done a little bit more interaction between each other. It just felt very just placed, like we're kind of just doing this for an 8 count. So that's another note that I would give to the choreography. That was a great moment that we had there. Love that. That was great. Right there on the tail in the back. They come up. But notice one of them was a little bit slower getting up. Down. They go up and they go, oh, having a moment. Very cute, very fun, playful. I like that. I wonder if this is like an album cover. I wonder if that's placating to that or just how they finish. I just think it's fun. Great finish, very chill. Not saying the movement is chill, but I was saying that their approach is more chill. And I'm seeing effort and attempts to make it more chill in a more productive way versus we're sacrificing power. You know, they still have some, there's still some interesting power pulls happening that I know are naturally going to sift themselves out over the course of the years. I feel like all groups deal with that in some way, shape, or form, unless they've had a very extensive pre-debut training to get some of those things knocked out. So, but this was really enjoyable. Definitely an improvement from Say My Name from Anjay's view, from his choreographic realm. So I'm actually very happy about that too. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to see more ATEEZ, more XG, K-pop dance content of the like, I have all of it on Patreon, whether it's copyrighted or not, it's all there. But I try to have content released daily or almost daily on YouTube, just so everybody can have a little something for their day. Just like for me, I enjoy reacting to things, and it's enjoyable to have discussions along the way, and this video is of no difference. And once again, I'm Jess, and I will catch you on the flip side. Bye!